So Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to Chat, Chapter a Day Bhagavad Gita. I'm again in this position whereby I'm given this service of trying to share something, this words today, because Mukunda Hari Prabhuji, His Grace Mukunda Hari Prabhuji has another important service, so he can't be here today. So sorry to disappoint you that Prabhuji is not here, and I'll try and share something, although again, because of a very, very short notice, I have not prepared the verse. So we are at the mercy of Acharya Chila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. So we will try again. We will focus on reading the purport, and we will see that what nectar we can churn out together. So I really need your participation today also, so we can discuss the verse. So let's start by reciting the Mangalacharan prayer, and we can invoke auspiciousness and seek blessings. So we can learn something from today's verse together. Om Agnanatimirandhasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha pratitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Radhanath Swaminiti Namine. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Deshatarine Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhaite Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Ishwaram. Om Tat. Hare Krishna. I'll recite the verse. Today's verse is number 22. Ye hi samsparshaja bhoga dukkhayonaya evate adyantyavantah konteya nateshu ramate buddha. And the synonyms are ye, those, he, certainly, samsparshaja, by contact with the material senses, bhoga, enjoyments, dukkha, distress, yonaya, sources of, eva, certainly, they are, adi, beginning, anta, and, vanta, subject to, konteya, O son of Kunti, na, never, teshu, in those, ramate, takes delight, buddha, the intelligent person. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. Purport. Material sense pleasures are due to the contact of the material senses, which are all temporary because the body itself is temporary. A liberated soul is not interested in anything which is temporary. Knowing well the joys of transcendental pleasures, how can a liberated soul agree to enjoy false pleasure? In the Padma Puran, it is said, Ramante yogino nante Satyanande Chidatmani iti Rama Padena Sau Param Brahma Vidhiyate. The mystics derive unlimited transcendental pleasures from the absolute truth, and therefore the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, is also known as Rama. In the Srimad Bhagavatam also 551, it is said, Nayam deho deha bhajam naraloke kashtan kaman arhate vidbhujam ye tapo divyam putraka yena satvam shuddhayet yasmat brahma saukhyam tva anantam. My dear sons, there is no reason to labor very hard for sense pleasure, while in this human form of life, such pleasures are available to the stool eaters, hogs. Rather, you should undergo penances in this life by which your existence will be purified, and as a result, you will be able to enjoy unlimited transcendental bliss. Therefore, those who are true yogis or learned transcendentalists are not attracted by sense pleasures, which are the cause of continuous material existence. The more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more he is entrapped by material miseries. Okay, what a wonderful purport, very significant purport, very nice explained. When we read what Srila Prabhupada writes, it is actually what we are doing is we are associating with Srila Prabhupada right now. We are in his company. That's why scriptures are so important. When we read scriptures, for example, Srimad Bhagavatam, when we are reading particular chapter or verses, we are actually in the company of those pastimes, of the characters and everything, the purports of Prabhupada and Acharya, they are with us. So we are in their company. So when we read the verse, it does not make sense. But when we read the translation and purport, it just seems so easy. And then to read between these lines, what Srila Prabhupada is saying or try to understand, it's like I heard that that happens with realization. And so knowledge, then Guru's mercy and seva, these two things, recently we also learned the verse about the three things we need to do for knowledge. So the seva and the humility and being very subservient to the Guru and seeking with submission, trying to understand these things, actually then converts this knowledge into realization. So we are just trying, that's why we are totally at the mercy of acharyas. It is not by philosophical discussion or by scholarship that one can really understand the spiritual knowledge. This is why we recite Mangalacharan prayers, because they are so important. Without their mercy and blessings, we cannot understand what it is, what Lord Shri Krishna is saying in this verse. So I was just thinking that going back few verses will help to put the subject matter in context, because I've not had time to prepare. So I'm just going to open the Bhagavad Gita that I have here, and I'm just going to look at it. That say, for example, if we just go back few verses, maybe verse 19. What does verse 19 say? इहैव तैर्जितसर्गो येषां साम्ये स्थितं मनः निर्दोषं हि समं ब्रह्म तस्मात् ब्रह्मणि ते स्थितः. So verse 19, Krishna talks about a Brahman platform. People with equal vision, they conquer birth and death. They are flawless like Brahman, and thus they are situated in Brahman. So this is again like verse 5.18, vision of equanimity, how Pandita Samadarshina, he is seeing everything with spiritual vision, with equanimity. Then the next verse is 5:20 and 21. We've been hearing that these two verses, it describes the symptoms of one who is in Brahman. So first 19th verse talks about what is the Brahman platform. And then 20 to 21 talks about the symptoms of such a person who has reached that stage. 5.20 describes four symptoms, and 21 another four, so total eight. And one who is in Brahman means he's a self-realized person. He's at the platform of self-realization, and he has these qualities. So the first quality is he doesn't rejoice something pleasant. So something he gets, say for example, that is very dear to him, he does not get overly elated. Yes, it is okay to be happy. Sometimes say you score very good marks, so we can't tell children that don't be too overly excited, or yeah, happy, you celebrate, but one should not get overly excited about it, because everything is temporary. Say same student, he gets less marks in next exam, then at the same time he should not get too demotivated either, should not get very discouraged, or should not become depressed, because again there is a chance to perform. So what I'm trying to say here is material dualities, they come and they go like seasons, they are temporary. So why should we get so overjoyed, overexcited, or overly unhappy over it, right? Because it is temporary. So, and then the next quality is that he doesn't lament for something unpleasant. And then his intelligence is very fixed, and he's unbewildered, samudho. So that was 20th verse. And 21st verse then talks about that his happiness is not dependent on anything external, and his happiness is fully centered on within himself. So he's not dependent on externals. Say for example, he's not dependent on comforts or fame, or he's not dependent on someone's encouraging words, or some palatable food. So he's already happy, he's rejoicing, and that comes from his internal, his consciousness. So within himself, Atmaram, I think we had this was discussed in near future, Atmaramascha Munayo. So Lord Rama is the reservoir of all the happiness, and this person, again, the happiness resides within himself, because he's very satisfied person. He knows the eternal truth. Self-realized means he knows his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he knows that the reservoir of happiness is the Lord Shri Krishna. And so the real happiness comes with being associating with Krishna, reading. It will come, we will come to that point. So then this verse basically talks about one who is situated in such transcendence. So that's verse 21, and he is unattracted to material pleasure, and he enjoys pleasure within, realizing Paramatma, right? So then today's verse number 22 is talks about sense enjoyment is ultimately distressful. If we look here, translation again, an intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery, which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. Now, over and over again, one thing is emphasized in all the scriptures, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and many, many other scriptures, they repeatedly say this, that material sense pleasures are temporary, and spiritual activities, devotional service, that is permanent. Even verse 2.40 says that there is no loss and diminution in this yoga, bhakti yoga, right? So that is, so there are three things that why, okay, first of all, this verse, how sense enjoyment can be so distressful. Can someone, let's discuss how sense enjoyment, that means that we are in this material world, we are within this material body, so our senses want to enjoy. Then what it does is that it comes in contact with sense object. For example, palatable food. Someone derives happiness from eating something very delicious. So the sense, the mouth, taste has come in contact with this palatable food, and that's how he is deriving happiness. But what is the verse saying here? It is saying that Adi Antavantah Kaunteya. This material happiness has Adi and it has Anta. It has beginning and it is definitely going to end. It is so temporary and feeble. So yes, so my question was that why is that enjoyment that is produced out of contact with material objects, why people go after this? So that's what I wanted to ask, that why, what is happening here that in this material world? Anyone would like to share thoughts? Why, even though many times we hear and learn the scriptures, we still, why is this happening?
Hare Krishna Mataji, my humble
Hare
obeisances to you.
Krishna Rupa. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. I think it's material mode of passion.
Mm.
It forces us. We are conditioned. So
Mm.
that's why I think it forces for sense enjoyment, and by seeing others. Nowadays, it's more with Facebook and WhatsApp and all that.
Mm.
It's more to do with. I heard Chaitanya Charan Das Prabhuji was saying that sometimes the desires are from within us, and sometimes it is triangular. We see
Mm.
other persons enjoying, and we think, okay, he's enjoying that, so that must be good. So let me do that. So that
Mm.
kind of thing as well. Yeah,
Yes,
Hare Krishna.
yes, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for those thoughts, Rupa Mataji. Absolutely. So the conditioning that we are in this material body and we are affected by so many modes, and that is why we are after these little pleasures, even though they are so temporary. But then again, here, what does it say? Yehi samsparsha jab hoga. So if you are bringing your senses with sense object in contact with the sense object, then there is some so-called sense enjoyment. But dukkha yonaya evate. So that enjoyment becomes source of series of misery. First of all, the contact with the sense objects gives you happiness, but the same happiness can become source of series of miseries, and we bring the senses to sense objects. There is some pleasure, but this pleasure is source of so many distresses. So um, how can enjoyment be the yoni or source of so much pain? Because it is material relief. When some relief is material, it is temporary. That is why even in the previous verses we learned that anything material, it is moving, it is temporary, seasons, hot and cold, summer and winter. In summer, if someone gives us hot boiling water at 12 o'clock when we are thirsty, that's not going to quench our thirst, so that is not happiness. At that time we want cool water. In winter, if we touch something very cold, it gives us distress. So this is the problem, that we are always looking, but the material world is such that it is not perfect. That is why na teshu ramate buddhaha. So buddhaha is the intelligent person and he does not take pleasure in this. That is the intelligence, that now you have this knowledge that what is happening in this material world, then you do not hanker for this. Your focus is not based on this hankering of wanting something material, but instead what happens is that one understands the real intelligence. What is that? And that is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 9, verse 10, Dhruva Maharaj prayers. So, anyone knows why Dhruva Maharaj had gone to the forest to meditate on Lord Vishnu? What was his wish? Anyone would like to share? Why did Dhruva Maharaj want to go and do so much penance? What was that at such a young age? What did he want?
He wanted the kingdom greater than his grandfather and father. So that's why he.
Absolutely. Yeah. So wanting such kingdom, that makes it a material thing, right? It's a material desire. So there are two things explained in that verse, and I'll try and bring up that verse because it is connected to this verse completely. So let me just try and stop share and share the Veda. Canto 4. So Canto 4 is on the screen, right? Creation of the fourth order.
Yes, it is, Mataji.
Thank you. Dhruv Maharaj returns home, and verse 10, 4.9.10. So yeah, let's read this this beautiful verse. So why it, because this is related to the verse. Here it says that one who is intelligent, he's not after the material pleasures, but he is very intelligent and he knows that is temporary. So he is satisfied within with his bhakti to Supreme Lord. So या निवृत्तिस्तनु भृतां तव पाद पद्मा ध्यानात् भवज्जन कथा श्रवणेन वा स्यात् सा ब्रह्मणि स्वमहिमन्यपि नाथमाभूत् किं त्वा अन्तकासी लुलितात् पततां विमानात्. And translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Someone would like to read the translation?
Read Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
My Lord, the transcendental bliss derived from meditating upon your lotus feet or hearing about your glories from pure devotees is so limited that it is far beyond the stage of Brahmananda, wherein one thinks himself merged in the impersonal Brahman as one with the Supreme. Since Brahmananda is also defeated by the transcendental bliss derived from devotional services, then what to speak of the temporary blissfulness of elevating oneself to the heavenly planets, which is ended by the separating sword of time. Although one might be elevated to the heavenly planets, he falls down in due course of time.
Thank you so much, Kalimataji. And purport, let's see how long it is. Oh, brilliant. Okay, who would like to read purport, paragraph 1?
Can I read Mataji, please?
Yes, please, Mitali Mataji. Good.
Thank you. The transcendental bliss derived from devotional service, primarily from Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and chanting, cannot be compared to the happiness derived by karmis by elevating themselves to the heavenly planets, or by jnanis or yogis who enjoy oneness with the Supreme Impersonal Brahman. Yogis generally meditate upon the transcendental form of Vishnu, but devotees not only meditate upon him, but actually engage in the direct service of the Lord. In the previous verse, we find a phrase bhavapeya, which refers to birth and death. The Lord can give relief from the chain of birth and death. It is a misunderstanding to think, as do the monists, that when one gets relief from the process of birth and death, he merges into the Supreme Brahman. Here it is clearly said that the transcendental bliss derived from Shravanam Kirtanam by pure devotees cannot be compared to Brahmananda, or the impersonal conception of transcendental bliss derived by merging into the Absolute. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mitali Mataji. And who would like to read the second paragraph?
Can I read, Mataji?
Yes, Sima Mataji. Hare Krishna.
The position of karmis is still more degraded. Their aim is to elevate themselves to the higher planetary system. It is said, Yanti Deva Varta Devan. Persons who worship the demigods are elevated to the heavenly planet. Bhagavad Gita 9.25. But elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita 9.21, we find Kristin Punye Mrita Lokam Vishanti. Those who are elevated to the higher planetary system must come down again as soon as the results of their pious activities are exhausted. They are like the modern astronauts who go to the moon. As soon as their fuel is used up, they are obliged to come back down to this earth. As the modern astronauts who go to the moon or other heavenly planet by force of jet propulsion have to come down again after exhausting their fuel. So also do those who are elevated to the heavenly planets by force of yajnas and pious activities. And Kashi Lutilte, by the sword of the time, one is cut from his exalted position within the material world, and he comes down again. Dhruva Maharaj appreciated that the result of devotional service are far more valuable than merging into the absolute or being elevated to the heavenly planets. The words Patitam Vimante are very significant. Vindan, with, sorry, Vimanda means aeroplane. Those who are elevated to the heavenly planets are like airplanes, which drops when they are run out of fuel. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Please
Krishna.
excuse my mistakes.
No, thank you so much for that wonderful reading, Sima Mataji. Thank you. So here, this words, Dhruv Maharaj, he has done his penance and he's face to face. He's taking darshan of Lord Vishnu, and here, this is the realization after his very very severe penance, and so much learning we can take from him. Because we've not gone through that penance, but Srimad Bhagavatam, these episodes are teaching us so much. So from here we can see that Dhruv Maharaj says that clearly there are two things in his prayers. He's saying here that if pleasure has to be attained, it can be attained in only two ways. And that is 4.9.10 and verse 11 both. It says first thing that you can attain pleasure by meditating on lotus feet of Supreme Lord, and the second way is that you can attain pleasure by hearing Krishna Katha in association of devotees. So these are the two things by which one can really attain the true happiness, and that happiness is not temporary. Any bhakti done, there is no loss and diminution. With more and more understanding, we get more and more realization, and even though the distresses and difficult times come in our life, from these pastimes of amazing devotees, Dhruv Maharaj and many other, we can learn that how the true happiness is in Krishna Katha, association of devotees, and all the other stages and steps and ways of attaining bhakti, Shravanam, Kirtanam, as the purport says by Srila Prabhupada. So according to Dhruv Maharaj, these are the two ways to attain the pleasure. So he took darshan of the Lord, and standing in front of the Lord Vishnu, he says this, and this is his realization. So devotees, they seek such pleasure, and they know, as per this verse says that yehi samsparshaja bhoga. So they know that the material pleasure in material sense enjoyment is not permanent. It has adi and it has anta. So for this kind of realization, detachment is really required. And detachment from external pleasure and focusing on the inwards within, experiencing the pleasure that comes from within, because Lord is in our heart in the form of Paramatma. So actually it requires understanding that the material enjoyment is so futile and feeble. That is the first thing. It is temporary and it is insubstantial. It cannot be kept permanently. So one should have this deep understanding, and that comes from studying the Shastras in association of the devotees. And that material sense pleasure is detrimental to one's spiritual progress. So there are two things. First, one has to get the detachment from external pleasure that comes from the knowledge and blessings of acharyas. And secondly, this sense pleasure is detrimental to our spiritual progress. These are the two important things. And as long as one is in material body, although one has intellectual understanding of this material body and the spirit soul, we know chapter 2, we learned the science of soul, right? There's so many qualities of the soul, that the soul is indestructible, it is permanent, it is part and parcel of the Lord. So just the very fact that he is living within the material body with material senses in material world, with so many material sense objects around us, at any moment we could get tempted. But this temptation of material sense pleasure is always there, although we have this intellectual understanding. So one should have this proper understanding. Material sense pleasures are totally insubstantial, and so we could get attracted to this temptation. That is why material devotees association is very, very important. That is why, because if we associate with those who are following this scriptures, their principles very nicely, who are buddha, right, who are very intelligent, they are very dhrida in their nishchaya in bhakti yoga, then that will also rub on us. That is why so much emphasis is given on studying the scriptures in association of devotees. So these are the two things that we have to have this understanding, that how the material happiness is so temporary, and it is really insubstantial, and it cannot keep us happy forever. And the true happiness lies within studying the scriptures, getting the knowledge, and asking very humbly and submissively to acharyas any doubts and questions that we have, and learning from them. We can turn this knowledge with their blessings can turn into realization. So when the realization occurs, that's when the detachment occurs, because it's not like it cannot happen automatic. It's not like a switch that we can detach. With their blessings that is possible. So, and here again, in going back to the verse, what Srila Prabhupada has explained in the purport nicely, I just wanted to quickly share that. 5.22. Is the 522 now showing on the screen? 551, it is said.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So here Srila Prabhupada says that eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. You know, there's these four activities: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Even animals, they do this. So human life is not meant for such pleasures only. It is such pleasure is there for animals also. That is so common between us and the animals. So if human being, the pleasure is centered around these four things, that how do I eat, how do I sleep better, how do I eat better, how do I make better, and how do I make all the arrangements and comforts and in my life, and how do I defend myself better. So that comes under defending, right? The livelihood, earning. So if we just center around that, then aspiring for this is wasting human life, basically. In so many purports, Srila Prabhupada has mentioned that. And here also he's clearly saying that such pleasures are available to the stool eaters, the hogs also. So rather, you should undergo penances in this life, by which your existence will be purified. And as a result, you will be able to enjoy unlimited transcendental bliss. So penances. Penances are like Dhruv Maharaj went to forest and did the penances. What we can do in Kali Yuga is Shravanam, Kirtanam, chanting services, devotional service. So many services are available. All these things comes under the penances for us. So if we do this, that will purify our existence, speaking for me. So if we do this, then we can get Ananta Brahma Saukhya. So if we endeavor for unlimited spiritual happiness, and if we don't settle down for sense material temporary happiness, then that's the goal of life. That in the scriptures, they are urging us again and again in so many beautiful purports and shlokas, Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. It's urging us. It's really appealing to us that we should not give up on the spiritual happiness. And in the spiritual circle, the happiness promises Anantam and Anantam Saukhyam. Anantam means one that does not end, that is not a temporary happiness. Anantam Saukhyam, unlimited happiness. That happens in the spiritual circle by performing bhakti yoga. So therefore, those who are true yogis or learned transcendentalists are not attracted by sense pleasure, which are the causes of continuous material existence. The more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more he is entrapped by material miseries. Because we all know that the material pleasures, they don't have an end. Because if he got one thing, say for example, then something else is always waiting. The mind is either our friend or enemy. This verse will come again. It's a beautiful verse in I think chapter 6, that how the mind should not control us, because us and the mind separately, they are separate entity. So even if the mind diverts little bit, 1 degree, 2 degree, if we are aware and conscious, we can always bring it back. This is the track. Okay, I'm chanting, it is diverted. It's possible. It happens all the time. Then bring it back. It's going again, bring it back. So that happens with constant awareness. And being aware and conscious of our own thoughts and our own actions and how we deal with people and how true we are to ourselves. Because we can always say one thing to somebody, but what is within our heart, that we know the Paramatma within us guides us. So this happiness internally is connected to Paramatma, Lord seated within even in our heart, and we want to sit him on a very clean seat. We want to give him a clean seat, which is not occupied by, or he does not want to share seat with many anarthas, right? Artha is what is meaningful, anartha, that what is not required, not meaningful. So we don't want Lord to share the seat in our heart with anarthas. So we can try for purification, and that happens as per Dhruv Maharaj by 2 things: association of devotees and studying the scriptures, and Shravanam, Kirtanam and Bhakti Yoga, practicing devotional service. So I'll wrap up here, and thank you so much for bearing with me. This is a totally unprepared class, but with your mercy, I could share something for my purification. So if there is anything you would like to share or any questions or doubts, please go ahead. Anything you want to add from this verse? Haribol. Thank you, Mataji. Namrata Kiri Mataji. Thank you so much for your message and the encouragement. Okay, so if there is no more doubts or questions on the verse, everyone's good with it. Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adyantavantah konteya nateshu ramate buddhaha. Very beautiful verse. Thank you so much. I'm very, very grateful for this service that I got today without not knowing. So Lord's mercy just flows, and devotees are very kind to encourage me to do this. So thank you so much. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you,
Wonderful.
Mataji. Hari Krishna.
Thank
Mataji,
you.
Hari
Thank you,
Krishna.
Mataji.
Hari Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.